For almost 2 decades, Diana, Princess of Wales, was the most famous woman in the world. Married to the future king, she became a glamorous global celebrity. But in the 1990s, Diana's story darkened from fairy tale to international soap opera as she was remorselessly hounded by press and paparazzi. The tragic end of her story stunned the world.
Massive shock it was. When you hear your name saying that you're going to do Princess Diana's funeral, you're like, ah, well, what's going on?
September 6th, 1997. Millions of people are gathering in London for the funeral of Princess Diana.
To witness that level of grief, crying, sobbing, people holding their heads in their hands, it was just massive.
This film tells the story of that extraordinary day, 20 years ago, the day of Princess Diana's funeral. Through the memories of people who played a part, this is the untold story of a unique event that transfixed the world. Many people are speaking for the first time.
We've done various flowers for the royal household. Seeing Mummy on a card, I've never been allowed to speak about it until today.
We got into the princess's world, eliminating the people who were just trying to cash in.
Candles burned out long before.
I had to say to Elton that really there was no possible chance that that could be used at the service.
I honestly thought we were going to have an absolute disaster.
It was a moment that brought together billions of people around the world. In 1981, Diana married the future king, Queen Elizabeth's oldest son, Prince Charles, in a fairy tale wedding broadcast around the world. A glamorous icon on 1 million magazine covers, Diana also won hearts and minds as the devoted mother of 2 sons and patron of many charities highlighting AIDS and landmines. Challenging the traditions of the royal family, she declared, "I don't go by the rule book. I lead from the heart, not the head." Her troubled marriage ended in divorce in 1996, and she lost her royal title. But her criticisms of the royal family and her high-profile relationships with boyfriends kept her in the headlines. In August 1997, she was in Paris with Egyptian film producer Dodi Al-Fayed. Having rejected royal protection, she was pursued by packs of paparazzi. In the late summer of 1997, the royal family are on holiday at Balmoral, their country retreat in Scotland. Graham Craker is Royal Protection Officer for Princes William and Harry. At 1 a.m. on Sunday, August 31st, Craker is awoken with a message from Buckingham Palace, requesting him to call as soon as possible.
I crept down the stairs to the house phone, dialed the duty officer of Buckingham Palace, and he then said that there were reports that there'd been an accident in Paris and that Dodi Al-Fayed had been killed and the princess had a broken arm. We established an open line to the embassy in Paris.
At 1:30 in the morning, the British ambassador to France, Lord Jay, rushes to the hospital where Diana's condition is unknown. Jay is taken to Diana's bedside and is told she is critical. With senior French government ministers, he waits for further news.
It was at about 3:30 in the morning when a nurse came and took Jean-Pierre Chevènement, the Interior Minister, aside and spoke to him. And he turned to me and he was visibly moved and took me aside and said that he regretted to say that she had died.
Jay phones Balmoral to report the news of Diana's death.
It was disbelief, really, and obviously a great degree of sorrow, obviously for William and Harry. And you try and deal with it as best you can, but yeah, you do get quite emotional about it.
That she should die in the most banal way possible, in a drink-drive accident in a concrete underpass on a Saturday night, was something which people were not going to be able to accept. That is not something which happens to your fairy princess.
Around the world, the news of Diana's death is shocking and hard to accept.
Princess Di is dead. And who should we see about that? The driver of the car, the paparazzis, or the magazines and papers who purchase these pictures and make bounty hunters out of photographers?
How very sad Hillary and I are about the terrible accident that has taken the life of Princess Diana and the others who were with her.
It was a tremendous shock. But the telephone then started ringing. Many people were ringing. We were all ringing each other. There is a standing plan with the Royal Air Force to recover any member of the royal family who has died abroad. So that was put into effect. Anything that was ceremonial and involved the Queen was my responsibility. And that, of course, included royal funerals. And I had plans for all the members of the royal family of a certain age so that I would be ready. But, of course, in this instance, I wasn't ready.
12 hours after Diana's death, her body arrives back in Britain. John Stillwell, official royal photographer for the Press Association, is there.
It was a very, very eerie feeling. No one could believe that they were actually covering her being brought home after she's been killed the night before.
Stillwell has been photographing Princess Diana around the world for years.
You know, she was very easy to photograph, very easy. She made ordinary people feel really at ease.
Jonathan Friedland is with a handful of reporters witnessing the return of Diana's body.
There were just a few of us and a few photographers, and it was very quiet and very still. So on day one, it wouldn't have been obvious what was going to happen.
Over the next 5 days, London will become the stage for an extraordinary spectacle and an unprecedented outpouring of a nation's emotions.
That week before the funeral, my job was to be outside Buckingham Palace, because once the flowers started, it just built up and up and up. I'd never seen anything like it. Such emotion. For someone that a lot of these people never even met.
Nobody at that stage knew whether it should be a Spencer family funeral or whether it was going to be a royal funeral. Princess Diana was no longer a member of the royal family. She had left the fold.
It's a political and constitutional minefield. Although Diana was the mother of a son who would one day be king, she had lost her Royal Highness status when she and Prince Charles announced their divorce in 1996.
The royal family handled what would actually be eventually a crisis for them ineptly and very badly. They stuck to formal procedure rather than just realising this was beyond the rule book. This was an exceptional event. So the royals stayed in Balmoral.
Very, very, very disgraceful, I find their behaviour. Very disgraceful.
What do you think, madam?
I think it's disgusting that they have not appeared or said a word.
It was perfectly apparent that a private funeral would not satisfy the nation. It was decided, and the decision passed to us, that it was to be a state funeral. This was, I think, the biggest challenge of my life.
Sir Malcolm now has just 5 days to plan and execute Britain's biggest funeral of the modern era. The day after Diana's death, at the request of the Prince of Wales, Prince Charles, soldiers of the Welsh Guards are flown in from security patrols in Northern Ireland. In command of the specially selected pallbearer unit is decorated war hero Captain Richard Williams.
We're in this massive military helicopter flying down the Thames, hopping over the bridges. I suddenly thought, there must be something significant here, because normally a helicopter this big isn't allowed into the centre of London.
Corporal Philip Bartlett was 24 at the time.
You were told very little at first. We spent 6 months in Northern Ireland, away from everybody. People chucking bricks at us and shooting at us. When you hear your name saying that you're going back to do Princess Diana's funeral, you're like, well, what's going on?
As preparations begin for the funeral procession, the guardsmen continue grueling rehearsals. The 8 pallbearers who will carry Diana's quarter-ton coffin, lead-lined like all royal caskets, have been selected for their height and fitness.
They size us all up. The tallest at the back and the shortest at the front, and they put a piece of plasterboard on our shoulders to see if it was had the right angle where the head was higher than the feet.
In many ways, it was quite good that we got straight into the business of rehearsing for the funeral, because we just didn't have time to think, didn't have time to contemplate quite what was going on.
By the time the soldiers arrive in the capital, Britain is in a state of what many describe as hysteria. And for some, the initial feelings of shock and grief have now turned to anger, directed at the press and photographers accused of hounding Diana to her death in Paris.
Photographers there, and there were a few of us, were all being accused of being the murderers of Diana.
You, press that killed her. You're the scum. Yes. We're here to pick the bones.
Throughout the week, the Queen has not spoken publicly about Diana and has remained in Scotland. Following days of protest in London, the young princes are seen in public for the first time, viewing flowers that have appeared at the gates of Balmoral. The day before the funeral, at last the Queen returns to London.
In the end, the Queen all but had to be dragged back to London. It was such a weight of pressure from press, and I think crucially from government, saying to them, you have to do this.
So what I say to you now, as your Queen and as a grandmother, I say from my heart. First, I want to pay tribute to Diana myself.
It had the visual grammar of a hostage video, where it looked as if she was reading a text that her kidnappers had written for her, as she said to the camera, I am grieving, I do feel lost as a grandmother.
The same day with their father, Prince Charles, William and Harry meet the crowds outside Kensington Palace. The royal family is working to heal the bruised relationship with the public. Locked away in rehearsals at their barracks, soldiers of the Welsh Guards charged with carrying the princess's coffin are largely unaware of the huge outpouring of national feeling.
I can remember very vividly going out and walking down and just seeing the sea of flowers. I remember coming back and saying to all the guys, you know, oh, we've been locked away, but, you know, this is really big. This is really, really big.
Corporal Philip Bartlett has grown up in a small Welsh village.
She was the Princess of Wales, and with that in mind, she was our princess.
Like many soldiers in his unit, he has met Diana when she visited the Welsh Guards.
You could see that in her, that she was so caring, so willing to be part of your lives as well and do things, especially with charities. She engaged with them and she cared for them, and that is a very special person. So you knew what she did for all of us, and we thought it was about time we could do something for her. It was hard, but we all realised what the job we had to do.
Saturday, September 6th. As dawn breaks on the day of Princess Diana's funeral, the crowds are already gathering on the streets of London.
Good morning on this sad September day as our grieving nation leads the world in saying goodbye to Diana, Princess of Wales.
Sir Trevor MacDonald is anchoring the coverage for independent television, as he has done over the 5 days since Diana's death.
I hardly ever left the newsroom. This was, in its intensity, in its emotion, in everything that it meant, in everything that it symbolized, in the way it captured the nation. I'm not sure anything else would ever surpass that.
The princess's coffin will travel on a gun carriage from Kensington Palace, through the streets of central London, to Westminster Abbey.
It was one of those, you know, amazing London mornings that starts off a little bit kind of misty and chilly, but it was obviously going to be an absolutely bluebird day. I remember very vividly arriving at Kensington Palace to collect the coffin and put it on the gun carriage, and it was a very intimate affair, as you could imagine.
We had all the maids and all that crying. They were all coming out the house. Next minute, the undertaker said the coffin's coming, so the coffin was rolled in between us.
A small unit from the King's Troop, Royal Horse Artillery, has been assigned to drive the gun carriage carrying the coffin. Like the pallbearers, they too have been kept away from the unfolding drama on the streets.
I think if I'd been aware of what was going on in the outside world, I think sheer panic would have set in. The sheer expectancy of the country, what was going to, or what was about to happen, was just massive.
Captain Grant Chanter will be driving the gun carriage.
Well, I remember gulping, just making me realise this is real now, and of who's in there as well. It came to me that this was going to be something even bigger than I even thought was possible.
At a time before smartphones and social media, over 1 million people wait to see Diana's coffin with their own eyes. 20,000 extra policemen and women have been drafted in to monitor the crowds, the largest security operation ever mounted in Britain.
There were a lot of us that were actually volunteering to work and wanted to be part of it. And London just had this feeling that was just so different.
There were the extremists. She had the odd fanatic who would have probably tried to lie on top of the coffin or done something ridiculous like that.
At Westminster Abbey, a single chime of the tenor bell will be the signal for the soldiers to begin their 2-hour journey. It will ring again every minute to mark their progress.
This parade was like nothing we'd done before. You could hear the bell tolling every minute. They had the police horses out in front of us, so effectively they were taking the pace.
I thought it was just going to be quiet sobs and quiet, being English. I thought that's what we do, isn't it? We don't show emotion. But then you hit the crowd, and that's what I will never forget about the whole thing.
We heard that huge scream, "Diana, we love you." And it cut right through all of us.
That was a very strange feeling, and I still don't quite know how to assimilate it to this day. Somehow something had changed. And then, most alarmingly for me, people started throwing flowers.
It was raining flowers at one point.
They were hitting the horses and hitting the guardsmen.
To practice for that, we got loads of newspapers out the mess, wrapped them up in tin foil, and then thrown them in front of the horses. The fear was that maybe one of the horses get so panicky that it can drop out of harness, it could bolt, and then obviously if one horse goes in a set of harness, the other 5 are going to go with it.
I was genuinely, seriously worried that we'll make it all the way, but just because of the reaction.
The cortege will now pass through the streets for 4.5 miles. Its progress is relayed on giant screens to tens of thousands of mourners in Hyde Park. Across the country, 32 million viewers are watching. Around the world, more than 2 billion people are following the funeral of Princess Diana on television. Journalist Jonathan Friedland is reporting for American TV.
For them, this was just the most juicy, double blockbuster episode of a soap opera they'd been following for years.
I think people are going to want to see, and maybe they shouldn't have this need, but I think they do, some real emotion from the Queen, perhaps from her husband, but also from, crucially, Prince Charles.
For the soldiers in the funeral cortege, their focus is on the challenge of the march to Westminster Abbey.
I remember thinking, this is really quite a long way. Slow marching all that way at the pace of a horse, you suddenly thought, this is going to be a bit of a feat of endurance.
You could hear the procession as it was approaching you. It was a really odd sound. You had the sound of the soldiers marching. You then had the horses' hooves, and you could hear the wheels of the carriage. It was dead silent. Apart from the noise of the procession, no one was speaking. One couple that I had been talking to, the man blessed himself. And as he blessed himself, his wife looked at him and she started to cry. When she began crying, it set everybody off in front of me. And you don't realise just how contagious that is. I don't even think I could count how many people there were that were actually just crying, sobbing.
After more than an hour, the procession approaches Buckingham Palace, and there is another break from any known protocol. A dramatic concession from the Queen following the criticisms of the previous days.
I think the Queen thought that it was an opportunity that would demonstrate to the world how involved she was.
The Queen, who bows to no one, who bows before the coffin of her former daughter-in-law. A few days ago, such a thing would have been unthinkable.
At Westminster Abbey, the congregation for the funeral service is beginning to arrive.
An enormous number of people wanted to come, and dare I say, an enormous number of people thought that they should come. And somehow we had to siphon that down to the people who really should come. And so we got into the princess's world, looking at her Christmas card list, talking to her really special near friends. It had always been my plan to get everything relating to attending the service into the first-class post on the Thursday evening. So it was a scramble. I telephoned the person who ran the post office, who said that he would hold the whole first-class post for 1 hour. What he didn't tell me was he then called in 1,200 postmen who drove their vans from all over Britain to collect the invitations. Everybody had theirs by midday.
In the final mile of the procession, there's a total surprise. The two young princes, along with their father, grandfather, and uncle, join the cortege. The family's decision to walk has not been announced or expected.
The involvement of the princes on the day was something which we didn't address until the last possible moment. And I understand that it was at a family supper on the Friday night in Buckingham Palace that the decision was made, and Prince Philip, after some discussion, said to the boys, "I'll walk if you walk."
Psychotherapist Lucy Beresford is in the watching crowd.
The first we know of that is when we see it for ourselves. And that was such an extraordinary sight. Suddenly, it becomes so real that what we're looking at is the death of a young woman and her family walking beside her. There was almost like a collective, sharp intake of breath at that moment.
Prince Harry's floral tribute for his mother has been created by royal florist Lisa Webb.
I knew that I would be making the tributes because I'd always looked after the royal household. The flowers were chosen by the princes because their mum loved white roses and also tulips. I felt extremely emotional seeing Mummy on the card. And it was in Prince Harry's own handwriting. A young boy was sending those to his mother. I came into floristry because of my grandfather passing away, and then it connected with doing the flowers to Princess Diana all those years later.
By the time the cortege reaches Westminster Abbey, the soldiers have been marching for almost 2 hours.
I was exhausted from marching that way. They then had to go and carry that really heavy coffin up those steps in front of however many billions of people were watching.
This is when all of those rehearsals, all of those times up and down the steps, this is when it, really mattered.
The first time we actually felt the proper weight of the coffin, that was extraordinary. It was, because you could hear all these flashes, everything. You could feel all the pressure from all the media around you. You had the whole world watching you.
The guys had field dressings underneath their tunic because all the rehearsing had rubbed away a lot of skin, so I knew they were in a fair amount of discomfort. You can see it on their faces.
I was trying to keep my mind off the pain and all that. And then we had the steps to go up to. We only got the coffin once on the rehearsals, and we got it taken straight off us once we banged it. We caught it on one of the doors and going into the gymnasium in Chelsea Barracks. When we actually got into the cathedral and we stood there for 2 minutes, I could really feel the weight and the pain in my heels as well. And I kept thinking to myself, this is going to go if we don't start moving now. It felt like it was going to go.
Oliver John Riven was a 12-year-old choir boy at the Abbey.
I suppose the first time I felt the enormity of it was seeing the soldiers who carried the coffin and how nervous they were and how much it mattered to them. There was a sense that this was something that had to be absolutely perfect. There was no place for any kind of slip-up.
You couldn't make a mistake. No way could you.
I can remember the squeak of the guys' boots on the floor. And I can also remember very clearly hearing that they started to get a little bit out of sync. And then, of course, it starts swaying.
We've got studs on our boots and also metal plates on them. And metal and marble doesn't go. And it was really slippery.
The pallbearers were all incredibly young. And I also remember that one of them stumbled as they came along our side of the Abbey.
Started going under the archway then when the boys slipped.
There was almost a perceptible intake of breath from the people on our side.
I felt that little jerk, and we thought, all right, okay.
My heart stopped for a moment, thinking this would just be the most awful thing.
As we went underneath the screen, I knew that we were going to be out of the view of the cameras. So I just said, guys, you have to get, just take your chance now. We go in a little bit out of step and come out perfectly.
I don't think we would have ever dropped it, because you always had in the back of your mind who you're doing it for. You're doing it for the public and you're doing it for the boys.
Jenny Rivet was Princess Diana's personal trainer for 7 years.
The shuffling of those feet as they brought Diana's coffin up. Lying inside there was this body that I had worked so hard on. The heart was the very thing that in the end had given up on her.
The broadcasters and royal advisors have agreed that television should not show close-ups of the royal family.
We then went past the members of the royal family. What we saw was a family, very obviously, sad and grieving. It struck me that it was becoming terribly easy to look at this as the final scene of some kind of soap opera. Actually, it was, somebody's funeral.
The musical director at the Abbey, Martin Neary, has the difficult job of putting together a service that relates to Diana personally, as well as to the centuries-long traditions of Westminster Abbey.
I certainly felt there had to be something representing the era of Princess Diana when the name of Elton John came up. I think I really didn't know quite what to think at that point. The question came up of what he should sing. And when I gathered that the favoured choice was Candle in the Wind, I had to say to Elton that really there was no possible chance that that could be used at the service.
Elton John's celebrated song with lyrics about the death of Marilyn Monroe was judged to be unacceptable for Princess Diana's funeral.
Elton John contacted his lyricist, Bernie Taupin, who was in California, and within a matter of hours, he came up with this amazing title, Goodbye, England's Rose.
Goodbye, England's rose, may you ever grow in our hearts. You are the grace that placed yourselves where lives were torn apart.
When Elton John was playing and he was battling to keep the tears back, and it was incredibly powerful.
And it seems to me you lived your life like a candle in the wind.
There was an oddity about the words written about another life which has been destroyed in various ways. That was the point at which I almost broke down.
Your candles burned out long before your legend ever will.
Finally, Diana's younger brother, Earl Spencer, delivers his tribute. No one at the Abbey knows what he's about to say.
I stand before you today, the representative of a family in grief, in a country in mourning, before a world in shock.
The Earl's emotional speech is the defining moment of the ceremony.
But of all the ironies about Diana, perhaps the greatest was this. A girl given the name of the ancient goddess of hunting was, in the end, the most hunted person of the modern age. She would want us today to pledge ourselves to protecting her beloved boys, William and Harry, from a similar fate. And I do this here, Diana, on your behalf.
I felt a great sympathy for what she'd suffered, but at the same time I was shocked by some of the things which were said.
I pledge that we, your blood family, will do all we can to continue the imaginative and loving way in which you are steering these two exceptional young men.
If we had a Shakespeare living now, that would be in a play that could endure for centuries, that speech. He vows that the blood family will take care of these children, as if Charles, the father of these boys, isn't really their family. The real family is him as the brother.
That such was her extraordinary appeal.
You felt as if a battle royal was about to unfold for emotional custody of these princes. The intensity of it was huge.
Diana was the very essence of compassion, of duty, of style, of beauty.
Somehow he managed to find the right words that did give us the impression that this is the elephant in the room. This is what's not being said, basically.
Someone with a natural nobility who was classless and who proved in the last year that she needed no royal title to continue to generate her particular brand of magic.
It grated to me on the day because I thought he was actually having a little bit of a go at the royal family.
Above all, we give thanks for the life of a woman I'm so proud to be able to call my sister. The unique, the complex, the extraordinary and irreplaceable Diana, whose beauty, both internal and external, will never be extinguished from our minds.
Charles Earl Spencer. And Spencer in this
outside in Westminster Abbey. I've never had that before.
For it to start outside, for the applause to start outside, and then ripple into the Abbey through the open doors, I remember that as being peculiar and unusual.
And it was as if that whole emotion had barreled through the walls.
It was my mistake to leave the doors of the Abbey open. What that meant was that when Lord Spencer made his remarks, the audience outside applauded, which in fact started the audience inside applauding. Fine. I don't think anybody took offence.
The princes actually applauded at the end, although the senior members of the royal family did not.
Outside the Abbey, Graham Craker, Royal Protection Officer to the Princes, is waiting in a hearse to carry Diana back to the Spencer family estate in Northamptonshire.
I looked upon it as an honour to be asked, and I also thought it might possibly be a comfort for William and Harry to know that I was there and their mum wasn't alone on that journey. When the pallbearers brought the coffin from the Abbey, William and Harry very briefly acknowledged that I was there with their mother. My wife died in 1991, and I have two sons. So, to a great degree, I can understand how William and Harry felt.
I think it hit home to a lot of us. You're doing your part of the job, but this was their mother. I know now what it was because I lost my sister. But that feeling inside when you lose someone so close to you, it's like your heart getting heavy.
And I remember sitting in the hearse. You know, when it snows, you get that silent atmosphere. It felt like that. It was just like there was a cloud over the whole of London. Most of the time, it was almost as if it was raining flowers. It was very poignant, knowing that each of those flowers represents the emotions of somebody in the crowd. We tried using the windscreen wipers, but the driver was finding it quite hard to see. I called the motorcycle escort in front and said, "We need to stop." And I took the flowers off of the bonnet and laid them beside the road. You just get that feeling that this is a moment in history.
And as the coffin passes from public view, we must draw back and let her go.
Everyone disappeared. Then you're left looking at an unbelievable number of flowers that are just lying everywhere. And people are just wandering off, just disappearing, literally. And it's like, okay, well, what actually just happened?
It wasn't any longer a stiff upper lip and just standing in silence. These were people who felt compelled to express that emotion because Princess Diana herself had been someone who wasn't afraid to show her emotions.
Today's monarchy, because of her, they've changed. They have changed a lot. Like William and Harry, unbelievable what they do.
I think we surprised ourselves as a nation on the day because we reacted in a way that felt at times a little bit un-British. But I guess my feeling would be that's okay, isn't it?